do? You know, what am I doing? So he comes forward and he sits him on a chair and his back against a concrete wall. And then he lowers down what he had assembled earlier before the professor was even there. He lowers down a huge pendulum with a massive weight, you know, like from a weightlifting thing. He lowers it down from the ceiling and it's on a big chain. And he holds it up just a fraction of an inch away from the professor's face. Okay? And he looks at him and he says, "Do you believe in the theory of the pendulum?" And the professor, with a shaky voice, says, "Yes." And then so he lets the weight go, and it swings, and then it swings back, and he says he's never seen somebody run off the stage in his life. And then he asks the students, he says, "So did the professor believe in the theory of the pendulum?" And the students all said, "No." That's the question that I have for you today. Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? Are you willing to stake your life on it today? Are you willing to stand in front of that weight and say, "I believe in Jesus"? There are many who have gone before you, who have been martyred, who have risked their life for that very truth claim, for that thing which they believe so strongly in their hearts to be true. I could point to all kinds of evidences that said that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And you can look at this and objectively look at Christ's truth claims and come to the conclusion that He is, in fact, resurrected from the dead and alive today. I could show you that. But that's not going to change how you respond necessarily. Because you might not want to believe that. You see, there's a difference between understanding and knowing and mental assent and trusting. Okay? So today, I'm going to ask you, will you trust? Is it because you can't? Or is it because you won't? Is it because you can't? Or is it because you won't? So the question is, and I think this passage answers, is how do we make our way to the Father? Well, we have to know the way. So the first thing is by knowing the way. The first one. Let's look at verses 4 through 6 again in chapter 14. Verse 4, it says, "And you know the way where I am going. And Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How do we know the way? And Jesus said to him, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through me." Listen, there's no end of voices out there claiming that they know the way to God. There's even a cult organization called The Way International. Maybe you've heard of it. There are people who claim the way to God is to acknowledge that there are many ways to God, or that there's no way to God. Okay? Let me ask you, if somebody says that the way is to acknowledge that there's really no way, then aren't they saying that there is a way? Think about that for a second. There's no end to ridiculous man-made religions, too. I actually found an article in preparing for this message. It's called 7 Weird Religions That You've Never Heard Of. Okay, and I want to talk about 3 of them that I just found were kind of interesting. I'm going to describe 3 of them. There's one of them that's actually called Jediism. I'm not joking. It's called Jediism. Okay? And Jediism has been referred to as a blend of Taoism and Buddhism that also incorporates elements of medieval chivalry. And while there's no formal central doctrine, all this is loosely referred to as the Jedi Code. Okay? And this is obviously comes from Star Wars, you know, the Jedi Knights. There's actually a religion around this, all right? And they have thousands of adherents worldwide. It's kind of interesting. There's another one called the Aetherius Church. And so, get this, on one day, this guy named George, he was sitting there, okay, in 1954, and out of the blue, he says that he heard a voice saying, "Prepare yourself. You are become the voice of interplanetary parliament." George started the Aetherius Society with the hopes to combine alien wisdom of the cosmic masters and yoga into something useful that will bring balance to humanity. They believe that Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna are in fact aliens. It's kind of interesting. There's another one called Raelism. Raelism. Have you heard of this? I actually went on this guy's website and was checking this stuff out because it was a little bit humorous to me. So I went on and I was just listening to some of the things that he had to say. Rael, his real name is Claude. Okay, he claims that aliens took him to the planet Elohim, where in addition to hanging out with the aliens themselves, he got a chance to meet Jesus, Buddha, Joseph Smith, and Confucius. And there's really three important things that the aliens told him that he needed to know. And one was that humans were created in an alien lab from DNA about 25,000 years ago. And the second is that aliens will be dropping in on Jerusalem in 2025. And the third thing is that Rael must relay to humankind a message of peace and sensual meditation. I don't know exactly what that means, but I have some ideas. So I can see why it would appeal to some people, this whole idea of sensual meditation. But you know, there are all these religions out there. There are all these people out there saying, "This is the way. This is the way to God." So the question I have is then, is it arrogant for us as Christians to suggest that there's only one way to God? Is that arrogant? Is it, because I hear people say all the time, well, you know, if you say that Jesus is the only way, then that's pretty arrogant, isn't it? Well, my question to that is, what if it's true? What if the only answer to 2 plus 2 is 4? Is it arrogant to believe that 4 is the only answer? You know? There are some objective realities in this world. And I believe that Christ came and presented us an objective reality about who He was and about who God is. Okay? And when Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," I have to look at the teachings of Jesus now. So, some people say, you know, Jesus is, well, He's just a good teacher. He's a great religious figure. You know, He's a really nice guy. He did a lot of good for society, those types of things. But if Jesus is not the way to God, then Jesus is a liar. That doesn't make Him a very nice person, because now He's deceived millions of people into following Him into falsehood and staking all of our hopes on Him. So if Jesus isn't the way to God, then He's a liar. Right? He can't be a very good teacher then, can He? He's not a very nice guy to lie to people like that, claiming to be God, claiming to be the way to the Father. So, to know the way is to know Jesus, who leads us and guides us to the Father. Jesus, as our guide, has given us this information on good authority. Why do I say that? Because wouldn't you rather trust somebody who's already been there? You know, if they know the way, then you're going to follow that person, aren't you? Right? Remember our example of being in the woods, being lost in the woods. What if a guide came through and said to you at that